to order. This is the meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees. And we will start with roll call.
Chairperson Knight,
Present?
Vice Chair Lucas,
Present.
Trustee Markle, Trustee
Present.
Trustee Nichols,
Present.
Trustee Olivas,
Present.
quorum is present.
Thank you. Let's move on down our agenda item. Item number 2, public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Library Board. Have anybody in the room right now who wishes to make public comment? Seeing none, do we have a phone line open? I don't remember if we did this or not. No. Is there anyone on the phone who would like to make public comment?
There are no callers in line.
Thank you. All right, well then let's move on down our agenda to item number 3 for possible action approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review these minutes? Do we have any edits we'd like to offer? I'm seeing heads shaking no. Okay, would anyone like to move to approve these minutes? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the meeting minutes for the June 23rd meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Nichols. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Trustee Markle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I do believe Trustee Olivas is going to abstain because you weren't here for it in the first place. Very good. Okay, let's move on down to agenda item 4. And I think I want to take these just slightly out of order for A, B, and C. I'd like to actually start with 4C. This is election of a board chairperson and vice chairperson. It is our first happy new fiscal year, everybody. It's the first meeting of our fiscal year. So per our bylaws, we need to elect a new chair and vice chairperson. So do we have discussion on this?
Can we just leave them the way they are?
If someone would like to make that motion, entertain a motion.
This is Trustee Markle. I would like to move that Julie Knight remain board chair and Beth Lucas remain deputy board chair. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Do we need to do a motion, or are we going to say, I want to nominate and do the election thing?
Yes, you need to
Okay.
open nominations.
All right.
Take the nominations, and I would recommend you do each position separately.
Thank you.
So we have a separate vote on each.
All right. District Attorney Woodbury, thank you for catching that. All right, let's start with board chair. We have nominations.
I'd like to renominate current Chair Knight for chairperson for our current fiscal year.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
Do we have to second that? Okay.
Hearing none, do we need to vote? Do I need to accept a nomination?
Yes, as chair, you can now close the nominations and
Okay.
accept a motion to move for the formal appointment of the nominee.
Okay,
position.
perfect. So let's do that. Let's close nominations, and I'll take a motion to appoint the only nominee. I'm sorry. I think the heat is just fried my brain.
To all of us. This is Trustee Nichols. I move that. What am I trying to say? Really, it's the heat. I move that we appoint Julie Knight as the chairperson of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a second?
Any?
Yes, I'll second the
Oh,
motion.
second. That's right. Thank you. All in favor again?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's move on to nominations for the vice chair position. And I would like to nominate Trustee Lucas to serve as vice chair.
I will accept that nomination.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, let's entertain a motion to appoint Trustee
We have to
Lucas.
close the nomination.
Let's close the nominations. And move on to a motion.
This is Trustee Markle. I move that we appoint Beth Lucas as Vice Chairperson of the Library Board of Trustees for this fiscal year.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Congratulations, Vice Chair Lucas.
Oh, yes, you too. Chair Knight.
All right, thank you. The most uncomfortable part of the meeting is over. Let's move on.
Be the messiest board that you deal with, DA Woodbury?
I feel like we are a little casual for you. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you. All right, let's move on back to agenda item 4A, review and possible approval of the updated library director job description. This is an extension of the conversation we had last meeting, and I believe we all have that in front of us, the job description, and we even have a representative from HR here. So I'll open that up for discussion. Has anyone had a chance to look at this? Let's start with you, Trustee Nichols.
Trustee Nichols, for the record, I don't usually like to criticize, but I was kind of embarrassed when I read these. There's a lot of mistakes on here, grammar mistakes,
Oh, okay.
and I would not like this to go out as is. Even if we don't change anything, we need to clean it up. From formatting to some grammar, there's a sentence in here, I don't even know what it means. If you go over to where it says supervision received and exercised, it's page 4 of 6.
Okay.
Talks about the incumbents. It's a very long sentence, and the next one says they plan. Wouldn't it be the incumbent plans? I mean, they plan. All of a sudden, they plan is in there. And the last sentence, work performance is usually measured by total results, and the governing body usually provides supervision.
Megan McCarthy, for the record. That section is just a standard blurb that the city uses on all of our job descriptions at this level. Certainly, if there's grammar errors, we can fix that, but it's standard across the board within the city.
I don't even know what that means. And a governing body usually provides supervision. I mean, they either are or they aren't.
So I think the idea here was that you're trying to keep this applicable across multiple job applications, and not every every position is gonna have a board.
Correct. And that's why it's referring to multiple incumbents and they, because it is referring to generally this grouping of employees rather than this exact employee.
Okay. Moving on, so I'm looking at page 2. Right at the bottom, it says required knowledge and skills, and it says knowledge of, and there's bullet points. And then all of a sudden, there's another line, and it says knowledge of.
Yeah, the formatting will be cleaned up once the content is finalized. So that was a side discussion, I guess, between myself and Joy and Todd on the development of this, that let's get the content ironed out, and then I'll go back and clean up the formatting so that we have headers at the top of the page and sections broken out as needed.
Okay, because also on top of page 2, the very first word, it says Am I not reading that right? Confers, is that what it's supposed to say?
It is
Okay.
confers, yes.
Confers, okay, I was like, what is that word? And then again, on some of our bullet points, sometimes we have semicolons and sometimes we have commas. So, anyway,
And that's
what jumped out at
those,
me.
yes, those are things that will be cleaned up with finalizing it. This is more of a red line version or a draft. So definitely in cleaning it up, all of that formatting and stuff will be caught.
Okay, and then hopefully we see the cleanup version before it goes out?
If that's what you would like for the whole board to reapprove a final version.
Well, I think as a body, we'll make that determination, but I would be more comfortable if we could see it before it goes out.
I feel like that would be maybe a next steps conversation. That's our next agenda item. So let's put a pin in it and come back to it. Thank you for that, Trustee Nichols. Do we have any other discussion regarding this job description? So if not, I've got a question. I have an ignorant question, I think. So here's what it is. Education and experience. We say that we need a master's degree in library and information science from an ALA accredited program. Is that a specific major that wouldn't be anything else? So I feel like I've seen people say they have an MLS, not an MLIS.
There's no
That's-
difference there.
Correct.
But
It
is
would
that
be a-
going to be a problem?
We could add a statement or an equivalent as determined by human resources is kind of a standard disclaimer, I guess, that you would include.
Okay. Troy, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I would just, to kind of piggyback what Trustee Markle said, there's really no difference in the different letters. So for example, I have a Master's of Science in Library Science, so I have an MSLS. Dr. Colgrove had a Master's of Science in Library Information Science, so he had an MSLIS. Some people have a Master's of Science in Library Science. It really comes down to where you went to school. But it all shakes out to the same curriculum and the end result's the same, if that makes sense. Would you agree, Dr.
Yeah,
Markle?
I mean, ALA accredited program, I believe that's the important part.
Right.
And that was going to be my next question, if there's a distinction between the letters and what's accredited.
No.
Sounds like no.
No.
Okay.
The ALA, the American Library Association, is an accrediting body for master's programs in library science. And different institutions, Joy's from North Texas, right? And mine came from Dominican University. Todd's I don't know where his was from. Drexel, okay. So different institutions will, based on, sometimes it's their professional staff, their interest in the community, they'll call their program differently, but they still have to meet the requirements of the accrediting body from the American Library Association. Does that make sense?
Yep, sounds good to me. I just wanted to clarify that. Do we have any other discussion on this draft job description? I think we had an issue last time the question came up about working with boards, working with, I think it said foundation, like working with the Carson City Library Foundation, but that's now dissolved, so.
Right,
so
yeah,
we've
we
removed
eliminated that.
language.
Yeah, because it was irrelevant. We don't have a library foundation.
Right. So you see that change has been made. Do we have any other comments, discussion on the contents of the job description? All right, hearing none. Let's move on to agenda item 4B, which is the discussion and possible action regarding next steps to fill the library director's position. So once again, we're looking to our representative from HR. It sounds like you'll need a finalized version of this job description. Is that right?
If we go the route of posting a recruitment, yes, we'll need to get the job description finalized before a recruitment can be posted.
And I think the other thing that we had discussed was just appointing, as we appointed an acting director, to just appoint a director permanently without going through that.
Yeah, so in the late materials that were submitted, there's a proposed timelines. Do you have that in front of you?
one?
Okay, yeah, so there's basically 3 options here as jumping off points, and we can, or you can choose to do either of these 3 options or a combination thereof. They're flexible, simply a place to start off. So option 1 would be I'm calling it a shorter recruitment, basically posting a recruitment, accepting applications for a period of 21 days so that it closes 4 days prior to the next regular Board of Trustees meetings. And then at that point, selecting which candidates to interview, allowing 2 weeks for candidates to be contacted for interviews and to make travel arrangements if needed, and then conducting interviews at the following, or at a special meeting 2 weeks following that. The reason that I'm recommending holding the interviews during a special meeting, if possible, is that depending on how many candidates would be interviewed, it can be a lengthy process, typically about an hour per interview. And so that can go pretty late in the evening. And most people are not going to interview their best late in the day when they're hungry or tired. So that's my reasoning behind that recommendation. But again, if you're determined to not do special meetings, we can do it during a regular meeting. Option 2 is going to take a little bit more time, but it would allow for a longer posting period, particularly if you're wanting to really push this out nationwide. Many advertising options are going to be a 30-day advertising period. So if going that route, I feel it's best to open for at least 30 days. With this example, I was saying 45 days of a posting period and then closing the application 1 week prior to the regular scheduled meeting. I don't feel that it would be necessary to hold a special meeting to review the applications and determine who to interview. So that's why I was trying to get that lined up with one of your regular meetings. And then that schedule would have the interviews conducted the mid-October, so week of October 10 through 14, tentatively. And then the third option, which we've discussed, because this is a unclassified position with Carson City, there's no minimum posting requirement. So if you have a candidate, whether internal or external, who is interested in the position and who you would like to entertain an offer with, you don't need to go through the whole posting process. So I just want to give that option to you as well, so you know what your options truly are.
All right, thank you for your overview. Have any discussion among the board members?
Trustee Lucas, for the record, I feel like if we are going to post, we should probably push it out pretty far. I don't know exactly how the library job market is right now, but most job markets don't have a lot of excess candidates to go around. So I'm not sure who we would really gather if we didn't do a pretty broad search, because we're looking for, pretty high up position. So it seems to me that if we do choose to post and recruit, that we might want to go with the longer version and do a wider search. And I guess my second comment was, has anybody asked Deputy Director Holt if she's intending or has entertained applying for this position?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Trustee Olivas here.
Yes.
Do we have any known candidates to recommend internal, external for appointment?
I think it's just Joy here. She's our acting director right now. I don't know that we have anyone else internal, unless you know of somebody.
I don't.
Doesn't look like it. Okay. So that's a factor to consider.
Also, in response to Trustee Lucas's concerns about the job market right now, I can certainly say that it is a tough market right now across the board. Just to give you an idea, from this time last year, our numbers are down probably between 20 and 30% fewer applicants that we're receiving. And that's better off than the national average for local governments. So it is a tough market right now. I can't guarantee that you're going to get fabulous candidates, and you may, but it's no guarantee, and it could take quite a while.
Trustee Lucas, have we had, it looked like when I read through the materials before the meeting that we are still trying to fill our newly classified open positions as well. Does that bode for the general library marketplace for employees?
Those 3 are still currently open.
Okay.
A couple of them, I would say, have received promising applications. Have you been reviewing them?
Yeah, I would say it's interesting. A couple of them have received quite a few applicants that didn't make it past the vetting process. I would say that there's a few, it's really interesting. There's a few that I think if I were to look at it, they might have applied for the wrong job. Because what they're looking for or their objective identifies the department that they're applying for, and it's not the library. So I'm not sure if they just kept their application, they just copied and pasted and submitted it to us. And then I have a feeling that's what happened. And then I think we very likely have an internal candidate for one of the positions. So if we can make that a real possibility, it would be an excellent fit. So
But
we're
then
still.
You've just kicked the can to another vacancy internally.
That's true, but those classified positions are, dare I say, easier to fill.
Okay.
We have had a lot of good candidates for our library assistant positions. We didn't have as many, but we had good quality. So, and part of that is because the senior library assistant positions, the library assistant positions don't require the master's degree. And so that opens up the candidate pool. But we do get a lot of folks that are applying for those positions that have a master's degree that may not have the experience, or they just are not interested in taking a job that's that they want to work to build up to the next rank. And then also, once they get to a point where they're unclassified, that there are some people that are just not comfortable with that being unclassified. Yeah. So.
Madam Chair, I need to try to pull us back to the agenda item, which is the next steps for the executive director position. I think the discussion does have some relevance in regard to, the overall job market for library kinds of positions, but just remind the board that the agenda item is for this position only, not for other positions.
Thank you for that. And so with that though, too, do we have any other discussion around what we think our next steps need to be? I would say I tend to agree with Vice Chair Lucas here in that if we decide we're going to do an open recruitment, we probably want to do a longer recruitment. Or if we choose not to open recruitment and just appoint our acting director, Joy Holt, I think that it's worth considering time and energy put to a recruitment if we are already leaning toward just appointing one person. So I wouldn't want to waste resources. On the other hand, if we feel that we might find something far and beyond what our existing internal pool might look like, I certainly wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to close the door on that. So I really would like to get a little bit more input from the board on our feelings about whether we want to open a recruitment or not. And then we can discuss length of recruitment if that's what we choose to do.
This is Trustee Markle. My only concern would be, would we be able to, if we decided to, this feels a little strange because, here's Joy sitting right here in the room. Not that I'm going to say anything bad, but, it's like, it's a new experience for me having to do all of this in a public kind of setting. And it's okay. I can learn to do this.
We like transparency.
Would we have the opportunity to sort of interview you? I mean, you were hired by, I don't even know if it wasn't Todd, was it? You were hired by Todd. Okay, so the board never had an opportunity to interview you. And so if we decided that we wanted to just appoint you and, just appoint you, does that give us the opportunity to, ask you questions before we make our decision final, to sort of treat you like a candidate, even though you're already, you're halfway there, so that we have a sense of, what the kinds of things you would say if you were a new candidate for this job. Do we have that opportunity to do that?
You can.
Okay.
If you want that opportunity, it would be a matter, and I make these statements subjects to correction by Megan, but I believe that you could agendize an item for a meeting. It does have to obviously occur in
Sure.
public. Agendize an item for possible action regarding the appointment of Joy Holt as the executive director, and proceed however you would like to in terms of requiring her to submit whatever material you thought would be useful for your review in advance of the meeting, and then to conduct an interview during the meeting, or there's probably lots of variations on that you could entertain.
So it could possibly be if we were to have 3 new candidates, they would be interviewed in a public meeting, and so anyone would be able to come and hear the responses, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I agree with DA Woodbury. I see no reason that you couldn't interview Joy in a public meeting, just like you would interview any other candidate.
And am I the only one who was here for the last one? Oh,
I think you probably are.
wow. Okay. So last time we did this, we ended up scheduling a daytime meeting. I think we started like 9 or 10 or something, and it felt like all day because it probably was all day. And we had the candidates out here outside the doors, so they weren't listening to each other's questions and answers, but it was a public meeting, so I'm sure we'll go find the minutes if you really want to go and review. And then we interviewed each candidate. We assigned scores because there's a rubric. And then we tallied those up, and by the end of the meeting, we had the person who we knew had the highest score, and we were going to offer them the job first. So it's a long day, and it's all public. I think we did have like a reporter maybe who was watching, which is always nice when we have folks attend. And so that's my recollection. Is that fairly?
I remember that as well. I also am remembering, and it may not have been the library director, it may have been a different position. I'm confusing, but I remember doing some sort of a meet and greet type event. Does that? Yes, with the community, where the community or library employees were able to pose questions that they may have. And I believe it was more like a panel setup. So that's an option as well that's been done in the past.
All right, well, back to my question. Do we have any further input from the board?
Can we ask Deputy Director Holt to apply for the position and conduct an interview at our next scheduled meeting? Is that,
Would be an application at that point?
or whatever she would normally submit if you were
It
part of the.
wouldn't, from my standpoint, it wouldn't be necessary for her
Okay.
to submit an application.
Okay.
I mean, it may not be a bad idea to have her submit maybe
A resume
an
or a
email
CV
or
or-
something
okay.
expressing your interest in the position.
Okay.
Well, and then,
Okay.
then supporting documentation that would, it could be a resume, it could be the types of materials that would be presented for a job interview, right?
Correct. So DA Woodbury, would you recommend having the board make a motion, something to the effect of that they're accepting interest from any internal candidates? Is that unnecessary?
No, I think that would be probably the prudent way to proceed, to indicate that the next steps for this board are to accept any application, for lack of a better word, from any internal candidate working within the library or within Carson City. Would you think, Megan?
I would think within the library would be sufficient.
So within the library, I think the things that you're discussing are appropriate material to require to be submitted. A resume, probably a cover letter, letter of interest, references, any kind of certificates or educational background material that the board might be helpful. And actually, I probably should shut up now because Megan's the expert. She can tell you what, is usually helpful for potential employers.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes and look at something I'm not supposed to, but would it be prudent, would it be okay if we saw like a performance review?
I don't see any problem with that so long as Ms. Holt is comfortable with that being released.
It does become public record.
Yeah,
It's one of our meetings. right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It would be available to the public, which typically they're not, but
Well,
certainly
that's why
Ms.
I'm
Holt
asking.
has.
I don't want to.
So if we could redact any sensitive information that might be on there,
Right.
not necessarily the content, but if you've got like an address or a phone number that needs to be kept private.
I don't think there's anything on there that folks wouldn't already have access to by looking me up on our website. So
It wouldn't have personal identifying information other than her name and position.
The only reason I ask is because, in the state, when we're looking at internal applicants, sometimes that really helps.
Yeah.
You may.
I think I have interviewed people who've brought that to the interview, actually. Here's my most recent performance eval.
Yes, I've seen applications where the applicant actually attaches it themselves. So I think in this case, that's kind of maybe the route that we would go is if Joy attached it with her resume and whatever. So she's actually the one releasing it to you, if that makes sense.
So could we do something like, say, make a motion to nominate Joy Holt for the position of library director based on the next meeting or a meeting of the Library Board of Trustees interviewing her as a candidate? I mean, if we just say, okay, let's appoint her, then it doesn't really matter what she brings us.
So like a nomination and confirmation kind of thing?
Yeah, sort
Oh.
of, yeah.
What do you think of that?
Like
one?
a
We
Supreme
need to be
Court
careful
justice.
with that at this meeting. This
Okay.
particular meeting, the agenda item is just to figure out what the next steps
Okay.
toward appointment of the library director is going to be. So we wouldn't want to make any movement, either even preliminary movement toward formally doing that. You want to evaluate whether Ms. Holt is the right fit for the position. That will actually be considered on the next agenda, but that is for that next agenda.
Okay, so we can make the motion, you said, to accept any internal applications from within the library, to anyone who may have interest in the position, to
Yes.
be reviewed, to be interviewed at the next meeting? I doubt we'd
Yes.
have so many, we couldn't fit them into the next meeting.
Yeah, I think the technical term for Megan would be to open up an internal posting for that within personnel currently employed by the library.
Correct. I could open a internal only posting if that's, and have Joy submit through that. Or anybody else who's interested internally.
Megan, would that mean I would need to submit an application again?
It would.
Okay,
It should be saved in there from previously though.
it is.
You have like an application system for the city, like you can fill in all your
Yes.
information and then apply multiple jobs as,
Mhm.
okay, so you kind of create a profile. And,
Yeah, the profile would already
Okay.
be existing, but then can be modified and attachments added and everything.
okay, so
So we basically need to move to accept like option number 3. Is that what we're doing based on the agenda?
option 3 says don't open recruitment. We're opening a recruitment, but
Okay.
it's an internal recruitment.
I'm good with that.
So I guess we would want to do, I don't know, get some input on timelines for internal recruitments. What's usual?
I believe the motion could simply be to accept internal, or to open up a recruitment internally for internal candidates who are interested in the position, and to schedule to interview them at the next meeting.
Okay.
So is that recruitment, does it usually last like 10 to 15 days or something?
With some of our collective bargaining agreements, some require a 15-day minimum posting. Unclassified positions don't require any minimum posting, so a week or as long as needed to gather and submit everything that's being requested.
Make sure staff know in case there's other staff who haven't expressed interest. We want to give them time to actually see it. Sounds like that's the general direction we want to go. Okay, everybody, let's have a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Trustee Lucas, for the record, I move to open an internal recruitment for our current employees of the Carson City Library for the library director position, with applicants to be interviewed at our next regular meeting.
Second.
Trustee Markle, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't hear. Okay. All right, motion passes. Let's do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right, everybody, let's move on down to agenda item 5, information only. This is the library director's report. And we will hand the microphone over to Ms. Joy Holt. Take it away.
Okay, so As you guys can see, we did fill our senior library assistant position with Kelly Robinson, who's going to start on Tuesday after next. Kelly is the current state cataloger at the state library. So this was, I like to say, an ungettable get. And we're super excited. She's an excellent cataloger, and I just hope that I know we'll have the volume for her, but I don't know that we're going to tax her brain in the way that she's used to. She's an excellent original cataloger. What we mostly do is copy cataloging, but we do have a lot of digital and technology equipment that needs to get properly cataloged so that we can circulate it. So when I saw that she had submitted her application, I was ecstatic, but I would have tried to be more overt. I would have been more overt with poaching her, but I didn't think she'd even consider it. So we got lucky, and we're super duper excited to have her. And some of the staff already knows her because we all participated in a hackathon, and we actually followed her classification process that she created it for cataloging XR and AR materials. So she's very intelligent. She's a smarty pants, and we're really excited to have her. And then also, we promoted Mrs. Chris Klug from a part-time administrative clerk to a full-time library assistant. And Chris was previously in this position prior to COVID. She started out as the administrative clerk, which is the person who does helps with the accounting piece because there's a two-part requirement. So there are things that I can't do that she has to do for transparency. And so she was in that position. She was promoted to library assistant pre-COVID. With the onset of COVID, she had to leave the library. She then came back as the administrative clerk. We promoted her to library assistant, and she had a personal situation that she couldn't work full-time anymore. That has changed, and she, again, submitted an application through our open recruitment process, and she was absolutely the best fit. She's done the job, and she will continue to do her administrative clerk work, so that will allow us to free up that part-time position if we need to, with library clerk or shelver, or so that gives us a little bit of a kitty of cash in our temporary budget, not temporary staffing budget, our hourly staffing budget or part-time budget. So, and this was the plan before she had to step down in October, was for her to continue to do the administrative work because it does definitely fall within the expectations and knowledge requirements of the library assistant. So this was another way that we were able to very efficiently, I think, get someone that can do a myriad of duties and also save us money or allow us to best meet our needs seasonally. So, and then our programming, onto the fun stuff. So that was fun, but not as fun as the Summer Learning Challenge. So that's still fully underway. And at the time I wrote this, we had 3 weeks remaining. So last year, our minutes goal for minutes read amongst the community members, and that's for 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 18, and then 18 plus. And it was approximately 200,000. And we doubled it this year to 400,000, and we busted that goal on Monday. So, and we've got even more since Monday. So we were at 400 and some change on Monday, and now we're at 423, I think. And it's looking like we are going to be at least on par, or if not exceed, our pre-COVID attendance numbers for the kickoff party. And well, actually, we have exceeded our kickoff party numbers from previous years. We also are hoping, and it's looking like just logically, that we'll bust our previous year's numbers pre-COVID for our completion party and for our completions. So it's pretty standard that you have about a 30% completion rate. And we're pretty much there now, and we have 2 weeks left in the program. And so people have a tendency to come in hot at the end and submit all of their minutes. And so we really won't have much of a firm idea of where we're going to land until probably a week or two after the end of the program, because people will be coming in with completions. And I think they have a week to, or no, they have until the midnight of the last night to submit their completion stuff. So we've seen a steady increase as well in our other programming that's related to the summer learning. It's related insofar as the themes of the programs have coincided with the Oceans of Possibilities theme. But we are definitely seeing numbers exceeding what they've been in the last 5 years. So if we take the COVID year out of there, if we just eliminated 2020, we still are seeing the highest numbers we've seen for story times and other programs attendance since 2017 in some cases. So we've got a lot of momentum going, and so that's really good. I just attended, I actually didn't have it on here, but I did at the very last minute. A woman associated with the PTA, I can't remember the whole title, but it's a group of PTA leaders from across the state that get together in different regions. Like they have one down south and they have one up north. And she called me 2 days before the event and said, could you come and have a vendor table? So last Saturday I went to the high school, and most of the folks were from Washoe County, but they were super excited to talk to me about the Carson City Library. And there were some kids there that were with the Boy Scouts that came over and told me they were doing the reading program. And they were super excited about the 3D printed gimmies that they got in their swag bags. And then a mother reached out and said, she's a PTA leader, but her kids are, in school. She was like, we'd love to partner with the library and winter reading. And I was like, we're in, we're all in. Tell us what here's my card. So, and we got some really good feedback about the summer learning program. We got really good feedback about our librarian who's doing the story times. And then also at the very end, one of the Boy Scout dads came up to me and said, I'm just so glad to see the library looking so much better and so much more inviting and not so clinical. And I said, is it the decorations? Because we're pretty decorated right now for summer learning. He said, no, maybe. It just doesn't seem like a building that was, built in the 70s. And I was like, good. Mission accomplished. Strategic plan, goal, hit. Yay. And so that's just what we've got going. So the state collection development grant is done. And that final report's in process right now. We did start the purchasing of the $15K ARPA grant that was for the electronic resources only. So we're going to see our ebooks and audiobook platform grow. And as you guys know, that's been what we've really been focusing a lot of this last little bit of collection development and ARPA money that we've been getting is to grow that, because we've had such an uptick in use that has not abated since the end of, well, I shouldn't say the end, since we've been back in the library in person. So,
Can I ask you about that though, real quick? I hate to interrupt, but so as far as the electronic materials go, are these still the same type of agreements with the publishers that are, as we discussed before, more kind of subscription-y? Not necessarily that you own the file once you.
Well, there are some expectations with this 15K that to avoid that, it's like one person, one use, which is a little less expensive.
Okay.
And so we're really using some of these. I mean, we want to get the newest stuff, but we also want to backfill some classics and other items that maybe formerly weren't even available on audiobook, because that can be the real problem with audiobooks. And I mean, full disclosure, I'm an audiobook listener, so I'm like, let's get audiobooks. But they're just not always available in audio. So we're just trying to do everything we can to just fill the collection as best we can. So.
Right. And I think you get where I was going there.
Yeah, exactly. The newer stuff, we are purchasing some newer stuff, but there are some confines within that grant to eliminate that, some of that.
Right, which was, if you get a great infusion, that it doesn't evaporate, because the way it's structured is only subscription based and you
Yeah.
can't access it.
Yeah, or
over long
metered.
term.
Yeah, the metered thing is
Yeah.
unfortunately taking over the industry, but where you get like 2 years and then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
The one person, one use is the best we can hope for, and the grant requires that setup. Yeah, because they want the purpose is for the collections to have some life, rather than be gone in a year or 2 years, or some of it's not even 2 years, it's like 26 reads.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a whole other thing that libraries across the nation are rallying against. So we'll see how we progress nationally on that.
I just had a question when you mentioned audiobooks. I previously did some volunteer narrating for the Talking Books program, which is it's a national program through the Library of Congress, but each state has their own talking books. And what each state does, their volunteers narrate a lot of more local materials. Books that are like about Nevada or have been written by Nevada authors. Is there any way that the library can ever access those materials? Because I'm thinking there's a lot out there that are audio that don't show up on the Overdrive
Yeah.
platform.
I'm glad you asked that, because we just had a meeting with a representative from Talking Books over at the State Library today
Oh,
to do
cool.
some collaborating. And so that will grow into a program. But as you know, Dr. Markle, I know the Talking Books librarian, and I've thought about reaching out to her because they use the BARD system now predominantly, which is a streaming system, right? So I'm not sure how we would access that, but it seems beneficial to try.
Well, they also have a digital record of the material. So, however that.
Yeah, so what I was thinking, and this is just all, I was noodling this, and then I'll move on. But what I was thinking was that it might not be compatible with Overdrive,
Right,
but we could make it available in some sort of digital storage on our website.
right, a special
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, those materials are, people who are interested in Nevada literature, Nevada stories, it's really quite a valuable collection that is pretty much invisible to all of us. Right. Unless we're disabled, visually handicapped or disabled in some way.
They're really opening it up, though. So it's, and they also have relaxed their person who can certify who's eligible. So now librarians can certify someone
Oh,
and say, yes, this person is visually impaired. They're a candidate for this program. Whereas before it used to be your doctor had to sign a bunch of paperwork and say, yes, you've actually, like, this person can't see. They've really relaxed their requirements. That's good, because that's opened up, opened up that option to a whole lot of people. So yeah, we're going to be doing some collaboration with them for programming. I'm hoping that they're going to join us at the senior center, because we've been doing some monthly visits there. So yeah, the possibilities are endless.
cool.
And then, as we kind of discussed earlier, the works in progress, 3 unclassified positions are still posted. They're still getting interest. It's winding down. And we did do a national posting for these positions. And those were some of the options that we received that I wonder if they fired that application off to the wrong position. Does that make sense? Because you have to kind of assign what position you're applying for once you've loaded your application. And I'm thinking that some of these folks might have clicked on the wrong job position that they were looking at. Does that make sense?
I think it might depend on how far off the mark they are, because if it's a system like I'm thinking it is, where you kind of build a profile out
Yeah.
and maybe you've uploaded a resume, and perhaps you've applied for one position and then now however much time has passed and you're applying for another, and so you go and apply for that, and it grabs the information from your old app and just throws it on the new one, then you might see a similar thing where it looks like they're applying for something
Yeah,
like that.
there's some that I think that's probably what happened, but there are also some that I'm like, unless this person is just 100% pivoting
Oh.
then they have applied for the wrong job.
Well, we have known people
Yeah.
to pivot.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, like, for example, someone applied for the technology librarian position, but their entire resume would have been spot on for programming and outreach. And so I'm like, are they just really pivoting? Because those are that's a swing right there. So I'm not sure. But we have very viable candidates that are local, and I'm just moving forward slowly. So the programming and outreach librarian, I'm hopeful that we have an internal candidate. So, and then the strategic plan implementation. So we're having a staff development day on Monday after next. And we did receive some questions from Dr. Steinman to be thinking about so that we can then move forward to discuss those questions and any reassessment of the strategic plan in October.
And Dr. Steinman is the gentleman from UNR who facilitated the strategic
He
planning.
is,
For
yes.
context.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes.
Sorry,
No, you're
sorry, Trustee Olivas. Anyways, Dr. Steinman's from the University, I can't remember, something of economic development. And we had a grant for a strategic plan implementation and development for 2019 to 2024. And part of that contract was that we get a reassessment every year. So last year we reassessed, the staff came together, discussed points that we wanted to change, things, basically just discussed it. Some of our mission things just got a little tweaked. And then this board also participated in the similar exercise, and he went back and then made the changes we wanted. And then this year we'll do the same thing. We're a little bit later in the year this year, but that's okay.
There was recently something on Carson Now, I think, about that. I think this was a presentation that was given to the Board of Supervisors, that the population in Carson has changed a little bit, and there's now more people over 65 and fewer younger.
Yeah, that's true. We just discussed this at a city managers meeting where the Department of Economic Development talked about that, where from her perspective, we're officially a retirement community. So, so we have to consider that, yeah. But we always have to consider all of these factors, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's definitely on our radar. And it's always on our radar too, that 25% of our, per the 2020 census, 25% of our population is Spanish speaking, native Spanish speaking, or first language Spanish speaking. So we have to be working toward that too. I will say that our bilingual story time has increased every time. And right now we've got I don't know if I discussed this last time, so I beg your pardon if I'm repeating myself, but we don't necessarily interpret bilingual as just another traditional language, but any language. So, for example, we had a patron reach out to us who's an interpreter for the deaf. So she's going to do an ASL bilingual story time. Also, I'm hoping that Talking Books will come and do a Braille story time. So that's another language as well. Or it's another way to access language.
Modality, yeah.
So I think we can tie it in. But it's really great, the number of people that have responded. And so we'll see. Also, our storytime librarian speaks Greek. She says she just reads it and writes it better, but who doesn't? Whoever studied a second language, unless you live there, you're going to write it and read it better. But I mean, you never know what other languages folks might want to come and teach,
I wonder if that's something that might be interesting to the retirement crowd. You
Other
know,
languages?
yeah, well, studying foreign languages is keep
Oh,
them
yeah.
on sharp.
Well, we've
Yeah.
got our
People
new
do that.
language learning
Yeah.
platform too. We switched from Rosetta Stone, which was crazy expensive and super hard to access remotely, to Mango Languages, which has an app.
Oh.
Did I mention it has an app? Um, Yeah, it's great. And one of our staff members so we were doing a trial, and I stuck with Spanish. But one staff member was like, I'm going to learn Korean. And the other one was like, because she loves the Korean soap operas on Netflix. And the other one was like, I'm going to learn Arabic. And I said, well, that's wonderful. I'm going to learn Spanish. So, I mean, we're just having fun, really.
Well, great. It looks like you're at the end of this report.
Yeah.
Did we want to ask questions about this report before you move on to the
Budget.
budget stuff? Anybody have more questions? All right. Let's move on down the line here.
So this general fund, the date says 7/19. So is this effectively the end of the fiscal year budget?
Ish.
Ish.
So this is very likely close to where we're going to land. However, there are the finance department wraps their fiscal year up and has final numbers and like stops applying purchase card purchases and things like that in August. So that's the official year end. And then we would have like, our final numbers. I can tell you just from doing this budget and monitoring it and managing it, this is pretty close to where we're going to land. We don't have much outstanding stuff. I make it a habit to not have outstanding P card purchases and things like that. And for us, we stop spending on our book budget in May because everything has to be received before the end of June. And so that's why we can really, we slow our spending down as we slide into the end of the fiscal for this reason, so that we can have a pretty accurate idea of where we're going to land.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions or discussion on the general fund report?
I have a question.
Okay.
You had scroll up, I'm sorry,
Which one do you want, the second
ahead.
page or the first page?
the second page, second page.
This one? Okay.
Yes, thanks. Trustee Nichols, for the record, I'm looking over here, it says, am I reading this right? You had like about $5,000 for small furnishings, but you didn't spend any of it? Okay. Would a water fountain count as a small furnishing?
Well, that can be tricky because furnishings are typically movable. And capital improvement is fixed.
It probably
So,
has to be installed. I mean, the drinking thing.
It does have to be installed, right, but.
yeah.
Is
But,
this a similar conversation as the bench
however,
one?
I'm sorry?
Is this similar to the conversation about the benches? No, because you don't have to get parks involved, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Once you walk through that sliding door, you're in our territory. But what I could do and have thought about doing, because I think off record we talked about like we can make it happen. This would be an example of being able to move money into a more appropriate budget line item to make that purchase.
Can I
That
ask
makes
that
sense.
also, because with the state, we do what's called work programs. So as
Oh,
you're
yeah.
getting closer to the end of the year, you realize, oh, God, we're not going to spend that money. So we do a work program and move it somewhere where we need something.
Right.
For us, it's usually tech stuff.
Right. I understand how the state works. It's it's very different in that we don't have a use it or lose it policy here. So at the state library or the Carson City Library, or Carson City. So our next year's budget still has that $5,500. It's not like at the state where if you spend $4,500, that's where you start. Now, when I say use it or, no, we don't have a use it or lose it, they don't roll, it doesn't roll forward. We get $5,500. However, that $5,500 that we didn't spend goes into the capital improvement fund, and that's how that money builds up. So,
And all the departments pay into that, right?
correct,
Right.
right. So in the past, we haven't put a whole lot of money into that kitty, so we didn't get a whole lot of capital improvement projects. So I'm trying to play a long game here with that. So,
And you understand that that's what we do with the state too. You kind of have to show how much money you've put into capital improvement when you
Yeah.
want something big. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Did we want to move on down to the grants board, the grants report? Grants board report.
So that one's gonna look weird.
Well, you want to take us through it?
Well, it's not going to reflect the grant monies that I've discussed with you guys tonight because those get pulled forward at what's called budget augmentations. You might recall this from last year. So in some worlds in the state, they call it a true up, where you pull the money forward that you've received. So you sort of start out with grants, you don't have any budget. And then it just continues to roll into that negative number until augmentations when they pull that money in and show the budget. So does that make sense?
So
So you're not going to see that $15,000. None of that's going to show on there. And we do have, these numbers aren't 100% accurate, but we are going to have a turn back to the state because we underspent like, I would say close to that, or maybe $500 we underspent on a grant. And that was because some stuff that we were going to purchase fell through. So
was it a supply chain issue?
I can't remember now, to be honest with you. That's terrible. But it was just something that it must have been a supply chain issue. We had ideas of something we were going to purchase. I have to think. And it was, actually, let me back up. It wasn't a supply chain issue. It was that the state stepped in to cover something, and we didn't have to pay for it. But when we wrote the grant, we were going to have to pay for it.
You didn't know
And
at the time
right,
they were going to come cover it.
right.
Okay.
So we'll have a turn back, and the finance departments, I knew this when I submitted the final report for the grant. I said, we're going to have a turn back, and they were, better to be under than over. So, so then you'll see, this is going to look, you're going to see zero until November, December when we do the augmentation for the budget.
Okay.
And also, you're not going to see on the gift fund the $60,000 bequest that we received, because I'll have to pull that money forward with that augmentation.
How does that work? Can you spend the money if you don't have it already authorized to spend?
Yes.
Okay. That's what the negative
yeah.
kind of represents.
Yeah,
then? Okay.
exactly. You can spend it, but you need to know that it's in hand. Like the finance department's not going to allow me to spend it if I don't have, unless it's a reimbursement with a grant. That's a different thing. But like with the bequest, say we wanted to go out and spend that $60,000, they know we don't have the budget. We don't show that in our budget, but they know we have the money because the money's in hand. I mean, we actually received a handwritten check. It was great.
Wow.
I took it to the treasurer's office and he was like, and I said,
So where did this bequest come from?
it became from a longtime library user who passed away.
Well,
So is it a memorial?
No, it's not restricted. It was just, we were one of her recipients. We were one of her charitable recipients in her trust. Yeah, I knew it was coming down the pike. And I'm sorry, I was going to put this in my report, but I thought I had mentioned it already. So I apologize if I didn't. But yeah, I knew it was coming down the pike. It was going to be a matter of time because probate and states and that whole bit can take a minute. Because we have another one we've been waiting on. That there was some miscommunication with the money being moved from a joint IRA to being split out amongst the recipients. And we communicated them to split it out and give us our own IRA, but we need them to we need the investment company to liquidate it. So I'm in the process of trying to get that taken care of. But I had to then find out if we need to get taxed, if there needs to be withholding, and we're tax exempt, so we don't. So that's underway as well. That's just under 10 grand. And hopefully by the next time we meet, that will be over the finish line as well. And so the 60,000, long answer to a short question, yes, we can spend that money because it's in hand. They can see that it's there.
Okay.
Do we ever know who this money comes from? I mean, is that public knowledge or is
No.
it secret?
It's not secret, but it's not necessarily public either. I can't think of any way how it would actually be made public.
Okay.
But I mean, I would be happy to, I mean, we could make it public if we put it in the agenda. And normally, if it were a restricted donation or something like that, or bequest that the family had submitted to us, because that has happened where a family member said, this person passed away, they wanted us to give you this money. That actually happened earlier in the year, and we send them a note.
Right.
But in this case, it was an attorney,
Oh.
and the person's, no longer with us. So,
So the best you can do is send an attorney out?
right,
don't
yeah.
Okay.
And then this next one is a similar. It was in a trust that was divvied out amongst the charitable organizations specified by the deceased party.
Okay. Okay, so when, again, you said October is when we would actually see these numbers look
More like November.
November,
Yeah, they're
okay.
due. We get the paperwork to go through the process in October, November, and then usually we'll submit that. And it, depending on, how many other departments are doing augmentations, it takes a little bit of time for us to see that money. But we know it's there, and it's my job to make sure that we are telling them the right amount of money. Like they know. For the gift fund, for example, it's the trickiest one. They know what we've got sitting as our balance in there. And so they will give us at the start of the year, like in the gift fund, you'll see there is a budget. There is money. They give us they base that, if I'm understanding this correctly from them, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, they base what they're going to start our budget at on what we spent the previous year. And if it's really low, they'll bump it. But it's not the total amount that we have available in our gift fund, especially now because we effectively just doubled it. And so then when we get money from our friends group, that is restricted because we go to them and say, we want to spend this on these specific things. And so then we just keep track of that as a project. And so then we can show if they need us to that we actually did spend the money on what we were going to spend it on. So there's those restricted funds, and then there's the non-restricted funds. And sorry. I almost never have my phone on the one time. Sorry about that. So most of our gift fund is unrestricted, which is nice because that allows us to have more malleability with how we use the funds. But we were very conservative this year. And we will continue to be conservative with that gift fund. I sort of see it as our safety net. But that's also, we serve at your pleasure. So, obviously.
Water bottle things.
Huh?
Water bottle things.
Yeah,
Water
bottle
bottle
filler.
filler ups.
We could.
Drinking fountain bottle.
Yeah.
filler.
I mean, if I found it, they're thousands of dollars. We could certainly use gift fund money. But I also think we could use general fund money. I'd have to figure that out. I mean, that would be the route that I would take first. And then if I get told absolutely not, then, we've got this kitty of cash we can dip into if we need to.
Well, all right. Do we have anything else on this agenda item? Anybody? All right, let's move on down to the next agenda item. This is board member announcements and requests for information. So typically this is the item I use to make announcements that are just informational and maybe we didn't get it on the agenda for one reason or another, or it didn't really require discussion. And then where, it says requests for information, I always kind of read that as if we'd like to make a request to library staff to provide information at the next meeting or a subsequent agenda, this would be that time. I mean, personally, I just have two things. An announcement I just want to remind trustees, given we have a new trustee, welcome. We do have, it's on carson.org under the government section, and then I think there's like a boards and commissions tab, and you click it. And then when you get to that page, there's a link up top that kind of gives you an overview of open meeting law and open records, which is always nice if you're not to the uninitiated, right? Looking at, anyway. So that just as a reminder type announcement. Then the second thing I have for y'all tonight is that you all remember that a while ago we initiated this somewhat advocacy kind of action where we drafted a letter, sent it to State Library and Archives. The letter said, "Thank you for that grant money, but here's an NRS that says maybe we could have a little bit more than what you awarded us." And so I wanted to give you an update on that. We did, it took me some time, but I did deliver that letter. I've met to State Library and Archives. I've met with their administrator, who's a state librarian, that's Mike Strom, a couple times. And this week came in though, we have a letter back from State Librarian Mike Strom. And I want to read this to you all so you know the status. So it says, "Dear Chairperson Knight and board members, thank you for your letter in May regarding Code 27 of Budget 2891. After discussing the issue with Director Freed," so that's his boss, "and Deputy Director Tuma, they encouraged me to draft a budget enhancement proposal to restore Code 27 to a level more consistent with what it was pre-pandemic. I drafted the proposal and included a copy of your letter as supporting documentation. Upon review, Director Freed signaled her support and moved the proposal on to the next phase of the budget build process. I'm currently working with my staff to determine the amount we can propose and defend based on the calculations written in NRS 378.087. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Being in this position since just last May, my institutional knowledge is recent at best. There is still a long way to go in the process and no guarantees, but it is rewarding to be taking action that may benefit Nevada's public libraries and their users. Thank you for your support of libraries and for your service to Carson City Library. Sincerely, Mike Strom, Division Administrator, Nevada State Library and Archives and Public Records. So now you're all up to date on where your letter went. Okay, so we will continue to watch that budget. The state is in the building phase. We won't, right? We shall see. So we'll keep an eye out there for the agency request and then for the governor's recommended budget early in the beginning of the new year. And I'll be following that closely and reporting back. So those are my announcements. I'm not sure if I have any requests for information, but I'll open it up to the rest of you if you have any announcements or requests for information.
I just, I went to a Friends of the Library meeting, and there was apparently some miscommunication. There was no quorum. There was no meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you for trying.
Yeah, it was like on the 11th. I don't know. Yeah. Well, Cena was in Alaska. And nobody knew.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that maybe I'll get another invite to another meeting.
Okay.
But,
Thank you for trying.
sure.
That's the best you can do.
Oh
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was on, yeah, it was on the 11th. And never happened.
Well, thanks for the update anyhow.
Sure.
And, if you actually do get to a point where you have a meeting and there's like a more substantive report, we can always put that on the agenda.
Okay.
And have some discussion around it. Any other announcements?
I don't know if you know this, Joy, and I just happened to read it again. Carson Now, cruising through Carson Now. Apparently, the Children's Museum is going to remain closed for quite a while. So I'm wondering if that's going to maybe the library will be impacted by that since they don't have their story time or any of their playtime or anything. So
Hopefully those families.
Yeah.
won't. Okay.
okay.
But I'm not really sure why it was shutting down. I know there was some hinky stuff that happened, like with someone living in the basement and that whole bit.
Yeah, we don't need to
so-
go on the
Google
record
will
with
give you
that.
the full
Yeah.
story.
you'll get-
Awesome.
You'll get it out there. But
So
we do have some displaced family potentially.
yeah, so it did strike me that because of that closure, we would be seeing an uptick in our attendance in programs. And I mean, we're at the point now with our Big Kids Butterfly Story Time that we might have to do two, because it's just getting. We had almost 50 people last time, and that's a lot. So, that would be great though. That's a pretty awesome problem to have to solve. So, yeah. Oh,
But
that's too
school must be
bad.
starting soon. When does school start?
August 15th.
August 15th.
So they'll make it. All right.
But yes, thank you for that info. We'll see. Hopefully. Well, unfortunately for them, but fortunately for us, maybe.
Yeah, anything we can do. I think they had a camp going, and that was something that parents had been relying on over
Yeah,
summer. So
yeah.
that's tough.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
That situation is a bummer.
Yeah, but it is something to think about programming going forward potentially. So
And that's one of the things we're going to be doing in our staff development days, doing a hot wash of our summer learning, what we learned, what we could do better, what was successful, and then, what we're going to do moving forward. Because ideally, we're going to plan out 3 months ahead. We won't be married to that plan, but it's good to have one, because we were definitely not as organized we were coming in like at the end to planning this summer learning because of our staffing issues, but it came together beautifully. So you would have thought we spent 6 months planning it.
well, good. Any other announcements or requests? Hearing none, let's move on to our second public comment period. Any members of the public who wish to address the Library Board of Trustees may come forward and speak on any topic that's relevant to the Library Board. I don't see anyone in the room for public comment. Do we have anybody on the phone?
There are no callers on the line.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's close public comment and move on to adjournment. We are adjourned, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.